place.
The lanes are too big to contain in that, as we saw. So.
Did we hear anything back from DOT,
About what?
MTA, or other city agencies about anything in the last year?
About what?
Any of the resolutions that were passed?
Well, DOT presented to us very likely because
oh, yeah.
the one. They've been pretty responsive. After the first feedback session we had online, DOT reached back out and basically said we're very prepared to take better suggestions you guys have. We got a couple of press outlets swooped in, so they've made some storylines too. And the DOT's been responding. They've been coming back to us, which is what I've been trying to have happen. So as long as they come to us and listen and implement the suggestions that we sit here and take time to put out, I think we'll be in a good place. So far they've been trying to assure us that they're going to take our feedback on whatever the bike lanes turn out to be.
Have they taken any entries on Washington Avenue with that corner of Montgomery and?
They haven't spoken to me about that. So I don't know if they're working on it under the hood or if they haven't anything about that yet.
And anything with the private partnerships that they do with Lyft for City Bike or with the car share services?
Nothing on that. Nothing on that. So what I think we need to do is probably do some more collaboration with the press so that these things get more view than just, being quietly adopted here and maybe DOT might hear about it. I assume they listen to the meetings and pay attention, but I don't know the extent of which. And it's always going to be more effective to get a headline in front of somebody than to have them watch a 1 hour meeting on YouTube. So I think the more we do this, the more, publicity we get to these resolutions, the more feedback we're going to see from DOT in the form of, hey, trust us, we're going to do this, or actual, builds being done in real life. So nothing yet on those. Nothing yet on those, because a lot of things that happened so far was the bike lane situation going on. Yeah. Hey, what's up?
Good, how are you? Sorry guys, this is bad time, I'm sorry, I'm gonna.
You're bringing it up for everyone.
Unfortunately, I didn't cook it, but thank you.
Alright, so this is the 7. Oh, yeah, I got something. Great.
Yes, I mean,
This is the latest version of DOT's plan. DOT's plan, yeah. Still very flawed.
Yeah. There's updates.
Huh?
There's updates.
No updates.
But they did do updates on the school, which was let's see if that's it. They designed schools so the buses could do drop-off at the same time.
Yeah, that's what they're doing on parking, right? So they have this.
They did a weird, where's the letters in Brooklyn? They're not doing it this year, by the way.
Yeah, no, they told us that. It's going to be at least a 2025 spring or later project.
I mean, I think they're doing an election, by the way.
Not
That's probably what it is. Serious, the ones that upset the community, either way, they'll upset somebody, whether they.
exactly.
I would still set up from either leftist or just further south. So should be leave it alone.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So many farm buildings, talking about so many parking spots have been wiped out.
Is the school?
Somebody hiring more person.
alright. Since it's a new session year, those spots are not vacant, so
I would like to run for vice chair.
I was just gonna ask if anybody consider running for vice chair. Anybody else? I guess just for everyone's information, the vice chair will chair the meeting when I'm not here. And the secretary will take the minutes as usual, and if the vice chair and the chair and the secretary can chair the meeting in that case, and designate someone to take the minutes on their behalf if they can, or don't want to. So yeah, is anyone interested in running for the first vice chair position? All right, just you please. And who's in favor of electing Felice Robinson as vice chair of the committee.
What's the credentials?
She has previous experience.
Alright, so assuming this is unanimous consent, Felice, you're elected vice chair.
Thank you, everyone, thank you.
Secretary, is anyone interested in running for the secretary position? As described.
I'm happy to do it again.
She has the laptop.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were already doing the secretary job.
I was in case no one else was, so if someone else wants to do it, that's fine too.
It's a pretty good pitch.
I'm registered.
So yeah, all in favor of electing Paco as secretary of the committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Alright, unanimous, Paco, you're elected for
Accepting
the
it.
year out.
Okay.
Alright, so that's done, 5 minutes flat, great to see. First thing we have on the event today is the street cleaning. And all the details are in the copy here. And I'm assuming that Rabbi Berman is here to present.
So I'm here to discuss that, take any questions. So,
Okay, we can pause a
Wait a
second.
few
so
minutes.
that you-
Sure.
yeah.
We're going so fast, 7:15.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna switch
Motion to.
Don't say much, I'm gonna be here till 9 o'clock at times.
Yeah.
You know, in the olden days of Community Board 9, when I first joined the board, police would come in every meeting
Really?
to get, like, it was really wild.
What year was that?
2015.
Was that just in
I don't know.
general?
I think I know why.
Ancient history.
Was
That was
the
just in
meetings across
general,
the street?
There were meetings across the street, but there were meetings, where were the meetings? We were
They had like mega hours, right?
They were in the school auditorium,
in
right?
school.
They still
when I
are.
first
They had
started
Medgar Evers, I
working
believe.
in school.
I think it was a high
They do
school,
mean
like
that.
PS, I forgot which PS.
I mean, a lot of in the public school,
That's it. Elementary school, isn't it?
but, like, they literally had to drag people out.
I think it was because Alicia Boyd was,
I remember the meeting over
very,
there.
animated.
They had fights up in that camp.
I remember that,
Fights.
yeah. Lori Cumberland
These
thing
were
back
all
then.
live
Yeah.
feeds, so.
Yes.
Yeah, it was crazy.
The first one we were, and the meeting, the board sort
You're on
of,
live feed now?
yeah, we are. Everything's live, everything's recorded.
How are you?
Yeah.
We'll be
Yeah,
fine.
how about you?
We'll be
Hey.
fine.
How are you? Good to see you.
Likewise, how are
Thank
you?
you. Good, good. Good. What can we see? Over here, you sit. Yeah. Thank you.
Just a community person that wants to hear what's going on,
Sure.
how the meetings are conducted, yeah. Did I cover everything?
Yes. Thank you.
And her name is?
I'm Brenda. I'm Brenda Castellanos. And she, actually, el patrón on Lincoln Road in the Lahish restaurant.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Really good food.
I've eaten there
Yeah.
before,
Thank
so
you.
yeah.
Appreciate it.
Where is
Thank
this
you.
now?
On Lincoln Road. 51 Lincoln Road.
Yeah, and she says,
What do you think?
I'm told the food is really good.
It is.
Thank
uh,
you.
Very
yeah.
Thank you.
And the drinks.
Thank you, that's the thing.
Alright.
After our walks.
Yeah.
Alright, Rabbi Berman, feel free to go into your request.
First of all, thank you for allowing me to present tonight.
Yeah.
President Street between Brooklyn, New York is a street where the Rebbe lived for many years, since the mid-60s. House today is considered very holy. It's open twice a year. People go and pray there. It hasn't been touched because it was where the Rebbe lived. And his wife, the Rebbitzin, we call her. He was considered probably the most important Jewish leader, they say, in the last 100 years, maybe more. He's, you know, understand him, he's like, and it was him like equivalent to the Pope, or more like the Jewish leader, and passed away in 1994. But his followers, you know, his teachings are here, his legacy, his wisdom, he left us instructions. I'm a member of the Chabad community, I'm a follower of the Rebbe. About 20% of Crown Heights belongs to the Lubavitch community, which are followers of the Rebbe. And we had this idea, it was 30 years since the anniversary of his passing, to name President Street in his memory, or to name it, you know, after the Rebbe, because that's where he lived for many, many years. And I spoke to Crystal Hudson as the council member. She was on board, and we have letters of support from the Brooklyn Borough presidents, from the district leaders, from the state center and the assembly in the district. basically it's supported by the entire elected body in this district. We also have about 45 signatures supporting it, so there's names and took out their contact information or whatever. They all signed. So I'm asking the committee, the way it works for those that are unfamiliar, I don't know, you've done street namings before?
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
familiar. So twice a year they vote on it in the city council. They've only done one this year. So my understanding is either gonna be a November or December vote. So it's important that we vote on it September, so we don't have to wait 6 months for the next time it comes from the body. And we don't have, of course, you know, I ask that the committee votes and recommend to the full board support this street co-naming. And we're asking it to be called Lubavitcher Rebbe Way. Rebbe is the name of a great rabbi, a Rebbe, they call him Rebbe, and Lubavitch is the name of the movement, the Lubavitch movement. It's a town in Russia where Lubavitch was headquartered for many, many years, the movement. And like I said, he's considered one of the most important, if not the most important Jewish leader in the last 100 years. It's not it's a question.
Alright, yeah, questions?
So I'm just being nosy at this point. You said that the house hasn't been touched since he passed away. Is that the one that's if you're going westbound, closer to New York Avenue, the
No,
big
it's-
one in the corner? Not on the corner, but a little further down.
No, that's,
You know which one I'm talking
you're
about.
talking about the Popek house.
What do you call it?
Okay? The Popek, right?
It has a, well, at
A
one
porch,
time it had
like a
these
porch?
beautiful stairs that go up on
There
the
are like
other
3
side.
houses from the corner, right?
Right, right.
And that's Mr. Popek. There was a couple, they lived, thank God they lived till through their 90s.
Mhm.
And I think the wife recently passed away. This is smack in the middle of the block.
Oh,
What,
it's,
14,
It's 13,
7,
08, or 1304.
1304 present. It's smack in the middle of the
oh,
block.
okay.
And I actually live on Carroll Street. My house, the Rebbe's house face sort of,
Really? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Was the co-naming ever suggested before or something?
So it's never been suggested before Lubavitcher Rebbe Way. It's never been- And actually, there aren't many streets in Crown Heights named after Hasidic people or Jewish leaders. Sort of a new. There's Tomchtim Way, which is Crown and Albany, which is named after a school. This may be the first. There's many, many Lubavitcher Rebbe Ways worldwide. There are many streets. Practically every town in Israel has one. There's in Russia, in Ukraine, in California. There's Cincinnati just named the street after the Rebbe. All over, not only are there street names after the Rebbe, this synagogue, which is located on Eastern Parkway, called 770, there's over 100 synagogues that are identical. They built synagogues identical to 770 all over the world. South America, to I don't know if there's any in Africa, but to Asia, to Israel, to Europe, Eastern Europe, there's a bunch there. Some in Ukraine, I think, right, if it's still standing, but, yeah.
So you're only asking for a name, you're not asking for like a symbol or anything of that nature?
What do you mean by symbol?
Well, I'm asking you because he's in a religious faith, yes?
He's a religious leader,
Okay.
but he's also not just a religious leader, he was a global leader, a force for good, he was more than just, every president, since the 1950s, till he passed away in 94, corresponded with him over issues of whether he was one of the people that helped create this idea of
Education,
children.
Home to Silence.
No, the food pantry, with the local Congress.
So let the WIC.
WIC, he was involved in Shirley Chisholm, and Shirley
He's
Chisholm.
involved with WIC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's put his name down, cause I have WIC.
He was a very, I don't want to say he's a, listen, the truth of the matter is people say, how are you naming president? You should really name the whole community, the whole block, the whole city, the whole country, because we have names, it's like, almost like he's larger than a street name. And I felt that because he lived in that block, and because to name a full avenue or multiple streets becomes a whole complex situation, At the very least, since it's 30 years since the anniversary of his passing, it's appropriate that, at the very least, his block, I mean, if the committee wants to recommend more, they could.
Now, I only asked that because we had suggested in other cases, of people that wanted the names on the street, we had made suggestions like a C that had the name, that put, a tree by it, or, some sort of
I
symbol.
don't know if they'll do that to city.
Like a commemorative plaque
Right,
for somebody
right.
that died by gun violence. I've
Right.
heard from last
And it's
year.
been done?
Right.
That, no,
Yeah,
they
did.
did,
explain
it
it.
has
takes a
been-
while.
We're considering more of these things. for
I would
the-
actually,
Yeah, the street
I
names.
wouldn't suggest, I don't wanna do anything that would complicate it or
It's a regular
simple, original process, done.
Yeah, I mean, the backdrop, I think, of a lot of those efforts were because you were seeing a long string of street namings come in that were mainly tragedies.
Oh,
So we wanted to think of something that's a bit more permanent, a bit like, it's not really like in passing, like a street
Yes.
sign might be for those things. And leaving street names for more like, I guess, positive effects.
well, this is a
like
good
prominent
example.
figures. Yeah, like some people have like names of like, like Nikola Tesla and kind of things of people who like you recognize immediately, as opposed to like someone who shouldn't have died the way they did,
Right.
but
There were a lot of
unfortunately
tragedies,
gone down.
unfortunately, in the community.
Right. So I think a lot of that was there was some sentiment where people wanted to avoid kind of enshrining tragedies on street signs and using more mindful ways of keeping them in memory. But personally, I think this is suitable, in my opinion.
Can I ask a follow-up? Oh, sorry, you.
It's quick. I noticed that, you're using the Verbiture Rebbe Way versus, the gentleman's full name. Is there distinction? And also, I work at the Armory, and is he in the Armory near City?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
He's the last photo.
Right.
So you recognize, yeah.
Right, because I always
What do
make
you-
sure I'm in the community outreach coordinator, work with Mahmood. Thank you for
So we-
supporting.
I
back to
I just
school.
spoke to him yesterday.
Right,
So we're doing an event and he wants to have an event back to back and we said we would work with him to get out there in time and everything.
right.
We did a big conference with
Correct,
2,000
yes.
people. Oh, so I don't know, I'm sorry, yeah.
And so every time I do my tour, I make sure that I recognize all the folks, and I always, bring up this gentleman when doing the tour, so.
Right, so you asked the question
But my
about,
question was,
so his
why
last
just,
name, so
okay.
because first of all, because he was a global leader, a Rebbe,
Uh-huh.
I'm referring him to a way which is more respectful, which is the
Okay.
Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Okay,
And his last name, I would say, is less dignified, and also, he's known throughout the world, like, there was a New York Times, his life story, he's a very famous individual, known by millions of people worldwide, unless hundreds, I mean, really well known, and they know him as the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Okay,
So I
that's
thought
all I
it would be more
wanted.
appropriate to use that name.
okay, cool.
Okay.
You
So
have
my next question based off of
Yeah,
Val's.
yeah.
I was gonna,
Oh, I didn't know this.
ministerially, are there other streets in Brooklyn or in New York that are
Named
named
after-
after the Rebbe?
In New York State,
In New York City?
I don't think so, I don't think anybody asked.
No,
We've
just
never,
making sure.
as far as I know, there's no other street.
I checked,
That's
we're
something
not
that-
allowed to be duplicated.
Actually, that's not your knowledge, the DOT won't allow you to name two streets after the same person. But that's something that's not on the committee, that's in the DOT. Meaning they go and they vet it, and they come back and say this is okay, this is not okay.
Second question, is the house registered landmark?
I don't know
Alright.
if the house is
Doesn't matter for this
landmark, but
committee.
I don't think, is the whole President Street landmark?
President Street's a historic district, but it's not landmark, so
I don't think it's landmarked, and I'll tell you why, just because it's owned by a nonprofit. And if you landmark something and you wanna change a window, if they own it anyway, they're not protecting anybody, they're just putting restrictions on
no,
themselves.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
It's historic, okay. There's a
But nobody
distinction.
have, the only changes they've made is like they put in air conditioning so it shouldn't mold, and they clean it and they, every once in a while, and they keep the temperature. And the people come from all over the world, and they ask to spend a moment, because he lived there for so many years, considered a godly figure, a holy people. People feel, when I got engaged, I got married during COVID, at the beginning of COVID, and nobody was on my wedding. And typically the custom in our community is that we go to the Rebbe's resting place where he's buried, we pray before we get married. And because I wanted to follow the rules and regulations, and I thought that maybe in his resting place there may be people, I went to his porch. I said, I know this is, but because the Rebbe lived for many years, it's a holy place. I felt appropriate to say a prayer on his porch. If you stand there, I live, like I said, behind you. I see constantly people standing in front of his house to say prayers. Like somebody has 2 o'clock in the morning, they need a place to pray. They feel because holiness was there for so long, there's still holiness left. They pray at the location. I could also say that it's possible, depending the time of year and how we do this, it's possible the street naming will have high-level elected officials, because he was such a famous and beloved person, leader. It's possible to track, and I don't know, maybe the governor, who knows? Depends who we invite.
There's a van or a truck that sometimes drives around with photo and like plays music. Is this the same person on the truck?
There's about 90 trucks like that.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've seen the truck numerous times.
And there's other pictures and stuff
Yeah,
throughout the
people-
city.
Yeah, all over the place, right?
Yeah, I know who you're
That's
talking
not
about
us.
now.
No, but yeah, I grew up in Kingston, so I always saw them.
So you've heard of it, right?
I said I grew up in Kingston Avenue, so I always saw them.
Okay.
Yeah, any more questions, concerns, thoughts? No?
Talking about this picture, I've heard stories where taxi cab drivers had this picture, and it's all people from all different walks of life. But you learn about it and you see what a great leader he was and how old he was. People just want to have some kind of connection.
Actually, I want to end before we, I don't know, you're going to vote now, you're going to vote later? But then it's okay if I go first?
Yeah, you have to sit.
So I want to say.
That's the penalty, you have to stay. And we say yes, no.
But you're welcome to
Listen,
stay if you want.
I did 10 years with this board. After the riots, when there was a lot of conflicts and there was a lot of tension, so the former Mayor Dinkins came to the Rebbe. He spoke about 2 communities coming together, and the Rebbe said, why 2 communities? We're one community governed by one city. He said, we're not 2 people, we're 1 people. And that was a famous line that's used all the time as an example of one people, we're all New Yorkers. We all have shared needs and interests.
All right. Okay, I think we can call it a question.
Shall we vote?
Yes.
I agree. I make a motion to place the rabbi's name on the street,
So you're
on the president. Wait, let me get it straight.
No, I mean, you can just move to approve the naming before us.
Okay.
It'll essentially apply to whatever street corner it is.
Okay, very good. It's not.
Unanimous?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So no opposition?
Amazing, look at that. Hope your bike lanes go easy.
I know, right?
You see that
We need
announcement?
We're working on that one.
You see that announcement that they just did the whole Bedford Avenue, like a mile and a half?
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Well-
It's needed. I'm sorry. It is.
Yes.
Can I ask a question before you go?
Sure.
And I know you used to live in Lefferts and Kingston, right?
Yeah.
So Brooklyn Avenue, from Empire to Lefferts, is all apartment buildings. The apartment buildings are, I would say, 50 to 80% senior citizens and large families, right? It's diverse, Jewish, African American, Caribbean American. We're talking about a huge. So right now, on Brooklyn, you have enough space, right, for a delivery to come, pull to the side. It's also a bus route. All the buses, you see buses, there are hundreds of deliveries every week there. If they put a protected bike lane on Brooklyn, from Empire down, right? So you now have 10 feet of space for a car. How do the people in these buildings get their LD orders? How do they get their food? What happens when somebody's trying to get out of a parking space? It's also an emergency route for ambulances, for police cars. How do you deal with that? Like, that's the question. I think that's why people are so, I don't know if you shared it with the committee, but I did a survey in Crown Heights on this, and I had 900 responses, 850 opposed it. And people wrote me emails afterwards why they opposed it, and it was anything from snow removal to sanitation to busing, to hospitals, to deliveries. And I find that, working on the board for 10 years, the DOT usually focuses on one issue. They don't always look at the whole broader picture.
That's why we're here.
Again, it's true, right?
Yeah.
And I think that these are real, legitimate issues. And it doesn't mean that we don't want, I drive a bike, right? I ride a bike. And I know the danger, but what do you do? Like, people have lived there for generations. And how are they gonna get their food delivered? I'm not even talking about the fact, the affordability of food. You buy, I order all my groceries from Aldi. It takes 30, 40%, right? It's a lot of money. Aldi is not, Instacart is not waiting. If they can't get up, they're moving on.
Yeah.
Valid?
Yeah, valid. I mean, now that's the first thing I noticed about the plan. They don't really understand that section between Empire and Lefferts, it's too small for a bike lane unless you remove the parking, because you end up with one 10-foot lane. And a 10-foot lane can't even fit a bus.
Or a snow truck.
Right. You can barely fit an ambulance. So if someone's little park, which they can't do, but if someone still does it, and an ambulance comes, it can't go anywhere. Right? I don't know how they missed that, but they did. That's why I think it's fine for it to go maybe below
East
Lefferts
New
when
York.
it widens. Yeah. But
I think
that-
Lefferts, you have the school, and I think the school is concerned with.
the school's asked for it. The school's
No, the
asked
school
for it.
is not, the school opposed it.
DOT showed us the principal's request that they asked for the bike
Not,
lanes.
not this school.
Which one?
That's
That's
Rivka.
Rivka? Okay.
They're at the corner, and their concern was that they brought in their security team, and the security team said, with everything going on, we know, can we, or on the record now, so.
Yeah, we are.
So there was a threat to target a Crown Heights institution.
Yes, we.
Oh,
So that was a Crown Heights institution.
Mm.
I don't wanna confirm, it hasn't been confirmed by the law enforcement, but let's just say that it was believed to be a Crown Heights institution, right? That it was gonna be targeted, even though the person who was alleged, who was arrested, whether or not he was desperate, whether he really had the capability to do it, the point is that it's possible he wanted to target a Crown institution. There's a lot of fear. The school is concerned, also if you make it a one lane, and something happens, there's no way, everybody's stuck. There's no way to get out, there's only one way to people, where ammo, like, it's like the
It's a
whole,
bottleneck.
Wait,
so
what's
so
the
I
illegal
spoke to
one?
the executive director of the school, told me he opposes it starting before Lefferts.
What was being a one-way?
Well,
What was being made a one-way?
no,
No, one
now
lane.
one
Like
lane.
a lane.
Lane, okay.
Lane.
I made misread.
I will say, I work in Midtown and I frequently see emergency vehicles using the bike lane when the traffic is gridlocked on the rest of the street.
Yeah, but we see by the park, they're not using it.
Well,
A lot of, did we have the same
Prospect
thing?
West,
Where is it when you go to Maimonides? What do you, I know that
I think that's the west side.
yeah, right, they got like three beautiful lanes of traffic, they
They're
only
all
use the
the
bike
emergency
lane.
responders are saying it's become really hard. It's become really hard.
Yeah.
I
Would
was-
you support, let's say, DOT has a bunch of toolkits also for like delivery and loading zones, would you support those measures to make the rest of life on that block less congested?
I have to say, I would say, listen, the bottom line, you have parking, I recognize the need, I think for safety, to take away some of the parking. I think on maybe street corners, I think there are measures that I'm not saying, yes, parking's important, but if you take away 3 spaces, 5 spaces, 55, 60 spaces, and make it just one, I think is, do you drive a car? Do you drive? So I don't own a car because of parking, even though I do.
Yes.
And when I borrow a car, I rent, I've come home at 8 o'clock at night, it's taken me over an hour to park.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
So these are all legitimate, so I think we all want the same thing, we just have to
No.
figure out how to get there, right?
Most of the parking removals are not a result of the bike lanes, that's because of daylighting. They're trying to remove those corner spots that are illegal by state law anyway. And turn that into a safe spot where you wouldn't get hit by a car turning fast.
Yeah.
That it's arguably technically illegal on the state level as it is. Just in the city, we carve them out to keep them, because it's a congested city, so we use those.
So that's something that's a lot more reasonable. I
Right,
think.
now
That's
what I
something-
would wanna do with that is probably have daylighting happen, maybe in areas of interest, so like maybe around the Botanic Garden, you have a hill over there. Like in places where we have like maybe like tourist spots, maybe some schools, right? So that it's not parking being lost everywhere, but it's parking being lost where people are likely crossing a lot and have a higher chance of being hit. That's all the people use them. They stand at the corner, they look down the street, see what's
I
coming.
like what they did with some of the corners. I think those are good, those are necessary changes. And again, if we lose a little bit of parking because of that, if it's safety, I get it, that makes sense. But the project as a whole, I think, is a disaster.
So regarding the parking spots, what I would like to do is probably start and work backwards. So maybe say what's some max parking spaces we'd be okay with having removed, and then with that number, probably work it out to see where it needs them the most. What areas in the district need daylighting the most, and maybe work from there.
How many people do you think live on the corridor that's been like affected by it? How many people do you think are in all these apartment buildings?
I'm talking about let's talk about now from Empire. Right, when you say affected, by the way, I just want to be clear because again, I live in Crown Heights 40 years. I know Benjamin lives here probably 45 years. If you have a bottleneck in Brooklyn Avenue and Empire and Lefferts, you're affecting all the way up to Eastern Park and beyond.
Yeah, I'm talking about the parking spaces.
But you were talking about some parking spaces also.
50 sounds like a lot of parking spaces to lose.
55.
Yes, and I understand that, but if there's 2,000 people that live on this
They
high
go,
blocks,
there's not enough parking.
I know.
People are parking by hydrants, people are parking, you know what it costs a parking space? They sell parking for 50 grand. It's $500 a month to rent a parking, it's crazy, who could afford that? Should be rent $500 a month, right?
Yeah, and you can, as New Yorkers, we can agree with that.
I think I like some of what you said very much, that like from the perspective of safety and understanding of opening up at corners where it's easier for a pedestrian to see. When I'm driving, it's easier to see the pedestrians too. For like school drop-offs, all the buses there, the kids can get out easier. Some of it, I think safety should be the focus, and I would disagree with what you had just suggested of like, what's a number that we're okay with losing? Because the number changes. Like, if you're renovating your house and there's a dumpster in front, now we have one less parking spot. Does that mean we should have one less space for safety? I think safety as the goal, to me, feels more rational. And then what can fit without creating a bottleneck or something. Like, I think the section that you're talking about on Brooklyn from Empire to Lefferts.
And Kingston, yeah.
And Kingston, right. Those are vastly different than south of Lefferts or south of East New York.
East New York has a bike lane, right?
It does, east-west, but we're talking north-south. And like, it's not that, they're not proposing losing 55 parking spots. And I think some of their spots are silly. And some,
55.
they're not proposing losing 55 parking spots on that 2-block stretch. It's across like a 10-block north-south,
Right,
it's across 20 blocks. So I think,
you know what I think you have to take into consideration also? I think you have to realize that the city is now about to adopt some version of City of Yes. City of Yes takes away parking in all new developments pretty much. In addition, the city passed a law saying that we have to put, I think it was 500 loading zones in the city. So we're putting in loading zones. In addition to that, to the City of Yes loading zones, you have the city bikes. So you have, the parking is getting hit from 5 different directions at the same time. So we're not just losing spaces, the 55, we lost a lot of spaces in this
zip
district.
cars.
Sure. And zip car, you lost a tremendous amount of spaces. So I agree with both of you. I think that we have to look at safety, but I do think we could say to the city, there has to be a way that we're not gonna go past 15 spaces or 18 spaces. They could design it differently.
For example, we have an example of that right now. On the Brooklyn Avenue portion, you have a part where because of the bike lane, they have a painted pedestrian island in the crosswalk, which would have been a lost parking space if the bike lane wasn't implemented. It gives up a lane, but we got a bike lane and we keep a parking lane, we keep one parking spot, because that corner that would have been a daylighting cutout is now still a parking spot. I think that's one way we could probably have, these parking spots remain in existence and still get safety as a result. I'm gonna show it to you, like, this is what I'm referring to here, and this one, this would have been a lost parking spot. It's basically next to the crosswalk. This wouldn't have been a parking spot because the bike lane's here, you can give people safety.
What,
how
where
they-
we looking?
23
Empire Boulevard?
Yeah, this is Brooklyn Avenue and
I was
this
gonna
is,
ask, could it be
Yeah.
placed in the
this is
video,
Brooklyn right here.
you know?
San Francisco wouldn't be.
Brooklyn and Empire, just to be clear, we're talking about the left side. You make a left, that's where Empire Coach Street.
Well, this is where I'm
Say
referencing.
hello to your sister.
No, brother, it's left.
Thank you.
It's left.
This is
It's
Empire.
wrong.
My mistake, sorry.
Different.
Yeah, this is Empire. Coming down here right now.
And right here is a big synagogue on the
Yeah.
right side,
That's
called
it.
Empire Shtibel. It's a, and on this side is a home.
But do
It's a home, I know,
you wanna talk about
and
that?
over
Or
here
you wanna
is
finish this?
a liquor store, a flower florist, and a big supermarket. But a wine store, a big
So
supermarket.
what are you saying is?
I'm saying this
I know
parking
that
spot,
you have
had
always
this
a lot
bike
of
lane not
e-
been here,
bike
the
drivers
daylighting
and
would have
people parked
removed.
outside
This is
your-
not,
your
this is not like this now.
Page
No.
23.
Do you?
This is an example of the plan. And I'm saying like tools like this are a way you can keep parking spots and at the same time get some extra safety. Right?
But I'm not focused on what's going here.
I'm very
They're-
tall, I hit those
That's just
umbrellas
paint.
every day.
So,
It's-
that's
they're
paint in the
comfy.
crosswalk, like if there was,
So,
if
yeah,
money was
the
flowing, they would pour
bicycles
concrete
are
where that
but,
light
yeah,
color
it
is.
should be fine.
But
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
won't, so it's just
Yeah.
paint, so that way if you're a pedestrian, rather than,
Yeah.
let's say you
But
get
you-
15
But now, this,
seconds
but
to
right now,
cross,
this is a
Where-
parking
that's
space.
parking, so rather than having to wait here
But this
and
now,
cross out,
this is now streets.
well, it's
So
crosswalk.
this is an example
It's
of,
just
this is how it
crosswalk.
looks right now.
Okay.
We have the cars coming down here,
Right.
this
This is a parking lane right here.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were coming
And
to
this is essentially a daylighting,
Right.
phase out.
So we put it right here. you're saying.
Right, they're saying you get this parking spot back and
Let me
this
get
part
a
of the
visual,
crosswalk
cause I'm a
turns
visual
into
person.
pedestrian island for safety, daylighting island.
So it's
This
like
one
a
here.
worthwhile, right?
Yeah.
There's a lane.
You lose a lane because
There's
of
a
the bike
lane
lane.
right here.
No, we're not talking about bike.
Okay.
So but I'm saying the bike lane
This is
needs
the
to come
this.
in the
This
plan.
is the example.
Okay, we
I
can't,
think saying that he's preferring
This is
this
an
where
example.
So-
this is, it's just paint. But if you're a
It's just-
pedestrian, you can
Where's
stand
the corner
here,
store?
wait,
Yeah,
it's
this is
like
the
cross rather than
This is
here.
only one
What it
parking
is,
So
space.
it's less time to
Right
cross the street, but it's not
Right.
losing any
This is
parking.
parking
This
in the
is
south.
in the parking.
It's not
It's
the
already indicated.
There's-
Right, I'm saying like just so this is an area, this is an example of
This is
where
like
like
a- yeah.
a bike lane
Yes,
structure kind of like meets and matches safety and parking spot. Because had they implemented daylighting,
Yeah,
this parking spot would have been eliminated.
And patrol.
Because the curb would have been extended out here, right? And because of the bike lane, bikers can use
We're
that
thinking to make
to
it-
travel. The car parks here instead, the parking spot is kept,
Right.
and
And
the
pedestrians.
daylighting is put in the crosswalk, so you have a place to stand and see traffic coming towards you.
Yeah,
And
those are
drivers can
great
see you too.
examples. I mean, that's just using the
We're
crosswalk.
thinking to make it one way.
That's not affecting parking at all.
Right, and that's only possible here because the bike lane was installed in this example.
Because
Right,
we
like,
have
The
allows
bike lane allows that parking to come back.
You know, the.
Right, so I'm just saying that's an example of maybe a tool that people could
Yeah.
use to kind of get some sort of happy medium
No,
Yeah.
the-
and
the
bring
relay
down
on
those
that
like lost
side.
parking numbers.
Yeah, so do you think that we should
The
visit
one
that spot?
flat,
Take a
right?
look to
We're
say.
not,
So-
It's not, it isn't implemented, and right now the parking spot is,
Oh, it is implemented already.
It's
No,
not.
No, the
no,
parking
it's
space.
It's
right now the parking spot is
I
gone.
don't know, it's gonna
That's
be
a,
another
that's a,
You
a no
could get, that
traffic.
would be plus one, then you
Yeah.
get a
So
parking
going
spot back.
from
Right.
one way each
Yeah.
I'm
direction,
just mentioning that
And
because
then-
if you saw a visual of it,
Yeah.
you're say, okay,
the
I
parking
this
think
is
spaces
good.
come up.
You should walk the whole
And this
thing.
becomes
Let's
more
do it.
dedicated.
That's
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
that's gonna be on.
why don't you guys get a bunch of city bikes and bike?
This is the daylighting, right?
The street is wider,
Yeah.
because a bike lane is smaller than a
Yeah.
car.
Right, yeah, my bad.
Is the DOT presenting to the full board?
Thank you for that.
This one is the
Loading on
daylight.
the other
DOT
side.
presenting to the full
We haven't
board?
agreed to it yet.
All make it one direction.
I assume-
We haven't
I assume, I have,
Yeah.
I assume they wouldn't want us to agree until we have a
Yeah.
full,
Yeah.
like, fleshed out final plan.
Thinking about
They only
loading on the
present
other
You
the
know, when,
side.
when they did the city bikes,
By bike
So,
lane,
I sat with
And then
Dante,
the
and we went
markers
through
will
all the
never
people in DOT,
So,
were able to
these cars
demonstrate
here,
Okay.
that
These are
Well,
going
thank
to
you.
the
Come
map
back.
that showed the board, the
Those
committee,
are parked.
they never, it's not the map they implemented.
okay, so when I get to the corner,
We
I
found
say,
like
I
different,
found discrepancies.
yes, multiple
and
discrepancies.
say I wanna make a left, how am I
And
saving the
point, they
people on this
acknowledged
side,
it
like I
was a
say,
mistake,
going
but they
that
said
way?
something.
So it's
Yeah,
not
I
like
can't
some
turn it into
word,
contractual
yeah,
or
we make a
whatever.
wild
I
side
went to
and
talk to him, I
insert
told him, you need to
They
come.
switch from it.
Yeah,
forget.
I mean,
It's hard to tell. There are honest mistakes,
Yeah,
but
well,
there's also
it's
bait and
always
switches, so
When
it's
were
hard
they
to
saying
say.
that they were gonna implement this plan? Like,
They didn't
they told us
said-
they want to implement it
2025.
2025 spring earliest.
Oh, okay.
Spring earliest.
So that's before the
That's less than a year.
Oh, that's-
I think that initially they came like ready to roll, and with the community, everybody had an issue with it, so like, all right, it's not happening right
I
away,
don't
don't
see
worry.
anything.
Okay.
That's the
This is-
community, they gotta come in.
From the
And
survey
they
you've
have to
done,
make
this
a decision
conversations
what
you've
they
had,
like,
would
you
you
know what I mean?
agree that
So,
there's
I was told the food
very
was
little
good.
perhaps dispute about the conditions south of East New York Avenue?
No, it's not what the survey, I have to look, I think like 80% opposed everything,
I have the results.
I was told
including,
food was good.
No, but I'm saying,
I have the results.
And then I was
a
told-
large percent opposed everything.
Okay.
I think that
Okay, I
it,
want more conversation. Thank you.
it's gonna affect a lot less quality of life from East New York, you know, as opposed to.
Yeah, that's probably true. I also want to point out one more thing.
I don't know in East New York, like, I can look how many people live past East New York.
listen, I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
like I'm often, when I'm, after I drop, my older daughter and I'm bringing my younger daughter to school, I'm often on East New York Avenue and I turn left on Brooklyn. And it's very
You're
wide.
talking bike or car?
Say, well, that's when I'm biking. Sometimes I still drive, but bad weather, I'll drive. But usually I'm biking with them, where they're taking the school bus. But like, there's a block from Maple to Rutland that like, I think there's no parking because every house on the west side of the street has a driveway.
Right.
That I'm like, any changes here are not affecting them. They may have said that they disapprove of the plan, but like,
It's an interesting question,
you know,
because
like,
I actually
but they
don't-
just don't approve it.
What's gonna happen
But
with a protected
But it won't affect
bike
them.
lane in front of a driveway? How does that even work? Is the bike lane, it's the bike lane, then it's the parking, and it's the street.
But there is
So
no
you
parking.
just drive through the
So there is no
open spot of
parking
the
on
There's
the
no
cross,
parking on that
so
block.
there's more space there, that means.
There's a ton of space that
Yeah,
it feels
it's
like.
a lot wider then, so it's
Yeah.
not, so then you should, if there's no parking, then you should have room even for 2 cars, right?
which might make it more dangerous for bikers and bikers.
Right, that's why, because
No,
it's-
but I'm saying you have room for 2 cars even with a protected bike lane.
Yeah.
Oh, you have room for 3 cars
Yeah,
even, it's
right.
so wide. So that's why I'm
I
curious,
think
are
that's a
residents
lot.
there still saying they
That's
oppose,
why-
even though it's like.
That's also why I think
Yeah.
DOT
Or by-
proposed a 2-way bike lane in that area, because the streets
Well,
are so wide they could accommodate.
Right, by
What
Wingate,
was it,
it's
like,
very
2
wide,
blocks or 3 blocks?
yeah.
I think everybody would agree
That's
that
what
if
it's 2 or 3
you
blocks.
are not losing parking,
See, that's
and
what.
you're not
Yeah.
shutting down the neighbor's traffic, a bike lane is good. Nobody's
Right,
opposed to
right.
bike, everybody wants safety.
Right.
Maple and
I
Rock.
think at what cost?
It's
Mhm.
hard.
And to your point, to both of your points on the survey, I want to just point
DOT is.
one thing out that, I mean, so according to the census, the last census, right? About 40% of people in
Instead of 2.
one of our zip codes, I think the biggest one that's, to divide, 40% of the people regularly drive a car, or have access to one people, right? 40%. So, and I noticed in your survey, about 89% of the people you surveyed regularly drive a car in projects.
I think that when you're talking about families, large families,
Mhm.
you're talking about a lot more cars.
Yeah.
You can't get around without a car if you have like a few kids. It's very hard. You can't. It's very difficult. But I would say, Benjamin, would you say that 85% of the community has cars or families? If you're talking about families, would you say 75%?
It's tough to measure.
Tough to measure. That's another survey we could do.
Well, I mean, so if we want to do a survey on that, I'd recommend we group the answers by car access, so we can see how these numbers change based on access to a vehicle, because the Census Bureau groups it by household. So it's not just individuals who have access to a car, it's what is
But I can look
households.
how many were from household. I have my database, I use a program,
Mhm.
it would let me divide it by, and my data person is very good, so she
Okay.
could divide it by household also. I also have the age of a lot of the people, because if they're registered to vote, they're in my database, I can check their age. And interestingly enough, I had about 40 people registered for the survey. The survey, when you were done with the survey, it said, are you registered to vote?
What is the
They
total
said, no,
census?
we got an email, please register now.
I know, I
Wow.
gotta check it, I can check it now.
As you said.
Check on
It looks like though, I might have missed this when I was talking, but the Empire Leffer, or the Empire portion that is losing car spots, that's to provide dedicated turn lanes. So that actually might make congestion better. Do you disagree?
No, I'm it's possible.
Oh,
Because
I
it's
see what you mean.
minus 6 spots to put in dedicated
I
left
think
turn
that some of
and right
those,
turn
some of that
lanes.
may make sense. Listen, if they take this plan, they come back and they say, Maple Street's gonna be the bike lane, we're gonna say we're gonna lose 22 spots, this is why, for safety, people are gonna be unhappy, but, you know, we're making a trade. But the way it is now, it's like everything, it's like they're killing us from all sides, right?
Sure.
You're talking about the intersection of Empire and Brooklyn?
Yes, where they show that you can turn right or turn left as it narrows from,
But in order to have a dedicated turning lane, you have to wipe out like half the block's parking.
yes, so you
Right, that's
lose
what they're
parking
saying.
spots, but you
Both
gain
But you have
street,
less congestion.
you can get more
Less
people
traffic.
through.
Right, so I think we have to look at it, another thing, somebody asked this from the DOT, by the way.
DOT is not giving
Somebody
both
asked
hands.
DOT, why don't we ever come and sample it? Why can't we just, like, that's a perfect example, it's how much, it's not gonna cost money to sample, let them put cones and see what happens if you, but they don't do it, they do some computer program and they run it, and they put the result, they say, get to these results, and they,
I've
Shoot
asked
out
them
some
that too, I think there's a liability concern.
probably a law, so yeah.
Yeah, that if someone got injured because they were just following cones, then once it's painted on the ground, the responsibility is on the user crossing, but I agree, it's a.
No, there may be also,
So,
you know, there's a federal law, I'm gonna leave because I snuck out of the house for this meeting, but, there's a federal law or some kind of
Welcome to
regulation where
marriage,
you
huh?
you cannot put a speed bump on a one-way, two-lane street. We told the DOT, like, why don't you just put speed bumps for sake? You're like, well, by line 5465, you can't put a speed bump on it. Like, I don't, there may be other regulations and rules that sort of play a role there. Mazel tov, Fred, they passed the street. Thank you again for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Amendments, I'll see you.
Alright.
So they already did the study though for this,
Which
right?
study?
For implementation of this.
Yeah,
Recently.
they've done a good few, but they like long-term studies more, from what I've understood. That's like with their protected bike lane study that went around for 10 years. They feel like it's easier to accept it into a long-term study, you know. So they're relying on longer-term studies for this one.
Only reason I'm asking this is because I've noticed that so many thousands of people have left New York as a result of the pandemic and because of the cost of living and things like that has happened.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at stuff from 10 years ago, how is that impacted now? And then since then, there are more things, and I keep saying, we still have the same number of streets, but we still have more things that are introduced to the streets, meaning especially these deliveries. There's a lot of deliveries and a lot of stuff that wasn't there before. And so how does that take into consideration? What type of times of the day is it so populated that it would warrant certain changes? I saw something, well, this is a side note. I got rid of cable. Yay! And I've got an antenna, so I get different television programs. And one of the programs, they talk about the city of New York, and they just talk about different things, anything about the city of New York. And they talked about the traffic and how during the de Blasio administration, I can't remember the little catchphrase of it, that we were gonna stop the
Vision Zero?
Vision Zero and stuff. And they talked about how it really didn't pan out the way they were supposed to pan out. And then they brought in a couple of engineers and different things like that. And they were saying that, yeah, you put the bike lane, or you do this, or you do that, put stripes, and do this and the other. But if you're not changing the configuration of the street itself, meaning the physical structure of the street, that, you're still gonna kind of have some accidents in another way. So they were talking about narrowing the streets. Did you see that, Margo? Narrowing the streets
That's the.
might, but you still have the delivery trucks are still gonna be coming through. You're still gonna have the scooters coming. You're still gonna have this. You keep introducing more stuff, and you keep just changing the lines, but you didn't really change the street itself. How the street is itself. You're narrowing the street, well, you're putting the bike lane on there, and I'm not dissing the bike lane,
Right.
but it's not like you're narrowing the street altogether that protects the person that's walking on the corner.
Well, that's-
Forget the bike lane, because two things happened to me recently.
That's what
I'm
it is.
driving in the car, this person on the phone, not even looking, just walks out in front of the car. No, so if I hit that person, I'm wrong, right?
Yeah,
I'm wrong. I'm
you
hit-
should see them.
I'm
Yes.
wrong, but I saw her. But she never looked up. She just walked right out into the street and not on the right light. It was my light.
So you had right of way.
I had right away. And she still, so I gotta stop. And then she kind of rolled her eyes at me and I'm like, what?
Right.
Then another time I had, it wasn't a bike, it was more of a scooter, just to come in my lane and cross and cut in front of me. And then I'm like, there's no license plate, there's no anything on that car. So if I'm in an accident, I'm still gonna be kind of charged if something happens to me.
Right, yeah.
So I'm still kind of looking at, as we move forward with stuff, what other things are changing to making folk more accountable? Now, you can't talk about the lady, you know, because if I hit her and she's dead, or whatever the case may be.
Hopefully not that.
But walking out in the street, head down in the phone, but then we've got all these little other things that have no accountability.
Yeah.
But if I hit with the car, the onus is more on the driver. So as we're looking at introducing and closing down lanes and adding things, what are we doing for the population, for the education of folks,
Regulations.
the regulation, and making them more accountable? Because there are a lot of bikes and different things, not bicycles,
Like
but
scooters
other,
and mopeds.
things that are
Right.
outside.
I mean, to an extent, some of this helps that. A lot of like painted bike lanes, the green paint helps you be more aware when you're looking down. So that's been shown to help people pay more attention.
And the bikers doing that lane instead of your lane.
But these bikers not, I was on the lane that had a bike lane.
Oh, they weren't in there?
No.
Right, but that's the other thing, right? Like there's a bigger chance for them to get in your way as a driver if they don't have a lane to themselves. Whether they're using it or not, if they have a lane and they're not using it, you have even more standing if you get into a court case in the first place. So it actually helps you out in two ways.
Because I'm finding that sometimes when it gets congested during certain times of the day, and we all get a little impatient because it's a head thing when you're in the car and stuff. They're like, I'm going through, cut and cross, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes they don't even stop at the light. Well, I'm at the light, but they're still continuing to go through, and I'm like, wow, they almost got hit, with the cars coming from the other direction.
Yeah,
So
those
I'm not
people
sure
are idiots.
what we need to do to, because we did talk with DOT about having more public service announcements and different things,
Different
to-
languages.
right, different languages to help folk and stuff.
Right.
Put
But
signs
you
out to
understand,
show
like-
the bike, this is the bike direction.
That's
yes.
fine. But I can understand too why the DOT would not be super invested in that because you can't control someone listening to you. You can't make sure that they receive the information you're putting out. You also can't make sure that they even implement it. You might hear all day that you shouldn't cross against the walk light, but whatever you do, cross anyway. People famously in New York do not care what the light says. We will walk across the crosswalk regardless. Right?
But still, if they get hit,
Right.
the driver is kind of still responsible, I guess, kind of sort of, even if they.
To an extent, yeah, because the
yeah.
drivers are expected to have you moving
I'm
faster.
expected to still follow the rules and regulations.
You're also
but-
expected to just be proactive regarding safety. You're expected to not depend on the pedestrian to get out the way, even if they should. Because a pedestrian can't really hurt your car, but your car can definitely hurt a pedestrian. So a pedestrian wouldn't make your car stop working. Like, it might only be a little dent,
You
but
can get into an accident trying to avoid a pedestrian.
that too, yeah.
That's true.
That's also true.
So what I noticed, it occurred right across the street from Lady Evans College on Bedford. This gentleman was making a walk-in U-turn. So in his completion of that turn, the cycler, instead of staying on the lane, the bike lane, he went around in front of the car. You can see that.
What's the broken reason?
Like a cater.
Like K-turn,
Right, when you turn, you stop,
a 3-point turn basically.
Oh, okay.
and then turn, because you gotta look around. Because I was sitting right there watching the whole thing. And he went right around in front of the car. What
Well,
is this?
that's
The
a
bike
problem.
lane is right here.
Also, legally, you shouldn't make a U-turn there, though.
Where?
He made a broken return.
But it's illegal, it's a double yellow, not supposed to say that.
Where's it illegal?
On Bedford,
On Bedford.
Medgar Evans?
I think it, yeah, it is a double. Yeah,
Part of the
well,
driving
he did
test
a,
is KJ.
Yeah.
No,
Why
in
did it
Bedford
come
it's
out the
legal.
bike
You just
lane
can't
though?
do it
Why-
on
that's
a,
the question.
on a double
Why-
yellow, you're not,
There's a
you're
lot of
not
double
supposed to do
parking,
it
was it double
there on
parking
a
that day?
one-way.
Maybe
On
he
a
had
dotted
to
yellow
allow-
you can,
There was some
on a
deliveries.
solid yellow you
Oh,
can't.
cause I know
Yeah.
like that
K-turn,
section,
you have to-
that particular
Yeah,
block
there was
is
some-
horrible for
I
double
also do a
parking
K-turn.
cars, and then you have to
I
get,
bet
like even
some
today I
streets
rode
have a
the city bike
dotted
here, and I had to get out the bike lane
I-
around in the main lane because it was like
Give you a
double
driver's
park,
test,
car,
like,
double
you
park,
have
car.
K-turn.
So I'm just like, a whole block, I
I've
had
done
to
it on
just
streets,
right up
I did it
the-
on the street, but no,
the
no
car
lights.
lane.
and you
I
have
mean,
to
it's
enforce
all-
it, you have a helmet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they don't
And you
enforce
have a
it.
helmet,
I don't think you're
right?
supposed to do when you turn on.
Not
a
when I
double-
use a city bike.
I'm curious.
That's the
I
thing.
don't, that's the thing.
Actually,
I remember when
you know
I
what,
drove 25
going up
years
that
ago.
hill, I've not stopped a lot because it's a big hill and I'm really lazy and I will lose momentum. So I will just like go on the sidewalk or go into traffic because it's less work for me. Like, because when you drive, you're not exerting your legs. That hill tires me.
Why don't you go Rogers?
Okay,
Go up Rogers.
Rogers
Yeah,
still,
it's
to me, is
double
not as
solid.
bad as
Yeah,
Bedford.
I can go up
Rogers
Rogers.
is not as
Well,
bad.
Rogers is one way, it's four lanes of traffic. If I go
They
on
speed
Rogers,
a
I'm
lot,
gonna
they
die.
speed a
Yeah.
lot.
If I go on Rogers on a bike, I'm gonna die.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
I've seen people on bikes all the time.
On the end of
The
it.
risk of their lives.
Yeah, it's
Rogers is
crazy.
crazy.
It's pain in the butt driving that fast.
But isn't there on the phone,
Okay, what's up?
directional,
Yeah, it's a summary,
instructions
and
on
they tell you-
where
Did you want me
the
to
bike
look at when they
lane?
bike?
No,
They're
but
doing
I
it
mean-
anyway. And that's the, that,
I mean, like,
That's one of those
like,
things I remember from.
You mean like
Okay,
Google
so when I
Maps?
hit you,
Yeah.
you gonna know.
Yeah, they have like a bike, so if you go on Google Maps, they give you,
You can
do it
select.
by bike.
Because
Right.
people always do those in New York,
I
I
mean,
do them all the time.
Like directions.
It's just,
Even
because
in
it's
front
so
of
much.
police.
Oh,
I
yeah,
use
it's so much
my
faster than a
directional
right
when I'm
turn right, because I
driving.
can take
Okay,
20
where
minutes
is
to go around the
the
block.
safest way
I
to
mean,
go,
I will
the
do that as
fastest
well.
way, or?
Yeah, they have that for bikers.
Like if you're doing it,
But
you have to
for
secure
biking,
Oh,
like, let me just say like,
Right. That's a
There-
good point.
every street or every other street you can drive on, right? It has pavement, you can drive on it. That is not the case for biking. There's bike lanes like once every maybe 10 blocks.
And that's why I asked that question.
And it's,
About the,
and even if there's a bike
Coffee,
lane,
she's over
they're
there.
just, they're not great to be in.
Stop losing with
A lot of times there's delivery guys, or people that parked in, like
If that's,
there's a lot of
I
stuff
really want to know more
on
about
Google
it.
Let me know
Maps that
what's
doesn't
going on.
translate into the real world.
Yeah, like it is.
So I guess, the question becomes, how do we incorporate the 10 different types of vehicles that may be on the road at one time?
Oh, wait,
So
no,
that
no.
everyone can
This is why
live
I asked for the service,
harmoniously
right?
and go
Because they
on
are
with their
keeping it
business,
in
their
service.
day-to-day life.
You can.
Cause there's always gonna be some type of delivery,
You're not-
there's gonna be something happening.
That's
You're not gonna
Right,
like
that's
the
what I'm
results
saying.
though.
Yeah.
Because like,
Yeah.
what's the answer is gonna be
Drive
something
the
like
order
you
of
divide it
use.
up by the use
Chapter.
per
That's the
people.
exception, the
And
U-turn
where
is the
we live,
exception.
30% of
That's
people,
why I asked to get
maybe
the
it's higher in
service.
the Hasidic community, maybe 50% of people drive.
Yeah.
So if a street is
can- you
100
can
feet
do it.
long or 100 feet wide, you make
Maybe
50%
just
for
over
cars,
to-
you make 50% for everybody else.
But that's
Now you're-
not, but
now
that's
you're
not
making
the
it like I
real, but that's
remember
not
the
the
voice
realistic
message.
part
If
about
you're
it.
here to
The
have
realistic
like a
part
voice
about
message
it,
and have
no.
me do it
The realistic
all
part
the
about it
WLs, I
is
guess
we
no
live
big
here in
deal,
the
I'm like-
community,
I can remember
and
what
the
I did.
majority of people that are coming on the streets are kind of passing through. So are we taking the license, well, we can't even say license plates. Do we know where the people are actually coming from? Cause people are
Like, you
going
take
to
this
work,
classified
they're
as
coming through our
even
neighborhood, so we can't
Which is, I
really
didn't know until.
look at those
Yeah.
people
So
driving and say, well, there's only
technically,
20% of the people in the
if you do
neighborhood that
it,
have
you
cars, so we're gonna take on 55 cars out of the spot.
You just
They're
can't
not the ones
overtake
that are
everybody.
actually
Right.
using the streets most.
Yeah.
Those people that are coming through, going for work or whatever the case
Good
may
call,
be, they're taking
Good
their
clarify.
Uber, they're taking this, they're Lyft, they're getting the whatever the occasional zip car they're using and stuff. So if we're looking at the Crown Heights resident versus the actual physical person that's coming through, how do we differentiate from the actual residents and not penalizing the residents in the community versus the number of people that are using the street just passing through?
Well,
Just passing
I'm
through.
on point two, right? I grew up here. Very likely would have had to move out if, like, you know, if like I didn't have a great rent deal from 2020, 2021, right? I mean, a lot of people who come here for a moment, you also acknowledge what things might cause someone who would become a long-time resident to end up not doing that. You know, what things are happening in the district that we might be either influencing or not, that might, not really allow someone to stay that when they would have otherwise. So I just want to also outline that's important to take into consideration too. Because there's those who stay no matter what, but a lot of those who stay might own houses, whereas those who might be recent, might have moved in the last 5 years, might not have owned money yet, and might be subject to reasons why they have to leave, but might have nothing to do with their desire to stay. They might want to stay for 10 years, but they either might not be able to afford it, or they might not be able to just like have a life set up that works for them. Like for example, like living near transit or having parking lots in their building and stuff. That might cause someone to leave prematurely.
And that's when I was talking about the study. If we're looking at a study from 10 years ago, based on the different influences that are happening now, some of the things that you say might be valid because of their income or whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
That maybe change the dynamics.
Yeah, they did studies on speed a lot, where they looked at speeds of vehicles on Kingston and Brooklyn, especially in the southern parts that are like white. I think they're in the booklet too.
Right, and that's one of the things they brought up in that thing that I saw on television. The wider the street, the faster the person goes.
Right, yeah.
So even if there is a bike lane that's instituted and put on there.
There's a major flaw, and I pointed out when the DOT was here, is that they don't take in consideration what happens if a car double parks or breaks down, and you only have one lane, then traffic stops.
So they did actually cover that.
They do?
Except for on Kingston. In Kingston, they had no
So
explanation.
once you have one lane,
Kingston as well, huh?
I mean, you're expecting them to go into the bike lane?
Right, but that's why they made that's why they made the parking lane oversized. The parking lane, I believe, was 13 feet wide. So it's big enough for another car to get through.
A bus or a truck also, or an ambulance?
I'm not sure if a
It gets
bus
very
could.
tight, I mean,
Yeah, but I mean,
if a car's double parked, then he's not like 3 inches away from the parked car, then all of a sudden you've got a bottleneck.
perhaps.
We have bottlenecks anyway.
I
I'm
know,
just
but you
saying.
wanna make it worse.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
if you give people dedicated turn lanes, maybe those people don't have to go all the way down to Winthrop to make a turn.
When you were just talking about how many things have changed since 10 years, like the thing that always sticks out to me is also how cars have just changed too. That cars are bigger. Look at like the smallest SUV now, or the smallest SUV now is bigger than the biggest SUV was like 15 years ago.
And the
They don't
pickups
get
too.
babysitted.
Pickups are huge now.
And those stupid Tesla trucks, I'm seeing them everywhere.
Yeah, we're getting more Cyber trucks now too.
They
This
go on
one,
the street.
yeah, you see it, it's
On
always on
Lincoln.
Lincoln.
On
Yeah.
Lincoln.
It's silver looking
Yeah.
spaceship.
It's
I'm
so-
like, what is that? That's a Tesla?
Yeah, and it
What
always
is
finds
that?
parking. Like I'm like, I can't find parking when I have a rental car. How does this thing always find a parking spot? It can fit it.
And charge ad, because it's.
Oh
electric.
yeah, it has
that's
to
true.
charge.
I think it's someone who lives
Some
right
of
over
the,
there.
there are a lot of like parking garages in the area that have charging.
So he's
Really?
parking twice as much as everybody else then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's
if
the
the
plan
charge
of
is
success.
I don't know where he's charging his car, but there is availability around.
But
Outside the district, there's like 123 Linden, where they have parking and charging. The PLC, that big building.
Yeah.
I don't know if 626 Flatbush has, but
Oh,
maybe.
I didn't know that.
It's
I was like,
crazy.
what
I'm
is
seeing
this?
more.
it looks like
around
it's
the city.
it looks like it's from like a
$110,000,
computer program.
$120,000.
I've seen like several in
Oh,
Manhattan.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's that.
Yeah.
So,
It doesn't
so
look
it's-
space
I
rack,
think
yeah.
something else that Paco was saying is that our community district, just the streets that we had, probably could hold 25 to 30% more parking spots 10 years ago than they do today.
Right.
More
We've
people
lost
have
a
cars.
lot of spots
Yeah,
just
because
because
cars are
cars were
bigger.
bigger.
Yeah.
If you could fit 10 cars on the block 10 years ago, now you can fit 8. You know, it's just because the cars are bigger.
And you have to
if
round down. You can't you don't get 8.5 cars. You
Yeah.
can't drive into the side of the street.
And then also you have people
Yeah,
who take
the
up
reason
2
why-
parking spots
Yeah.
The reason why that's
when they
federal-
park. So
Yeah.
it's like if you could have just moved up a couple more,
like
a couple more
It
feet,
looks like
it's
the
not
federal
a squeeze
government
the car.
has, I
It's
forgot
not like
exactly
it's
what it was,
pixelated.
but they basically,
I don't think the
Don't-
guy that drives it
the
is a nice
mandate
person. I wouldn't
for
wanna be
fuel
involved.
efficiency is in relation to the weight of the car.
It's
so
So they make the cars bigger, so they don't have to work as hard to make them more fuel
What is
efficient.
this?
They
That's
also
not
are just
It's
imposing
so
a new-
ugly.
My car was like
also
I
a
wouldn't
new
mind.
law, federal law about the hood
I
size.
also
Yeah.
didn't have insurance.
Because also
I'm
injuries
not a
go
good
up
biker, I'm not
higher
a good
the hood.
driver.
Of course, you can hit anybody.
Well, you can't see it, and then if it hits
That's
you,
if you're
rather than
driving,
break a
you
hit,
No,
have to
there's a
drive.
state
You're
insurance
right along
program.
He gets a rib, right? Instead of a hit.
Yes.
Right, well,
It's-
or
it's
your
a
heart.
huge
So like,
law.
so the
Everybody
higher,
knows.
and for
Stay on
kids,
point.
it hits their head.
When in
It's
New
a
York,
killer. So,
Yeah, if you're
so
uninsured.
they're looking
disabled
at now
programs.
lowering the height
Really?
of the
Oh, I
hood.
didn't know that. All the hidden
But
loans
it's a
that
federal
people get?
regulation.
Especially
now.
city bike is saying.
It's gonna be
they're
weird
not
how that works
responsible
out,
for anybody
because I know we're making the cars
Yeah,
ridiculously
that's the next
heavier.
thing,
No, no, I'm
and
talking about
have
drivers.
drivers
The
harder
standards
for
of
fuel efficiency,
top-
and now they're from the other
Full of
side,
money
the
for
hood should be
drivers
lower as
who
well.
are
They should.
not-
Have you seen those GMCs with the screens
I
that
did
show
not
you
know
in
that.
front of your
I
head?
mean,
The
Yes.
camera?
They-
I'm like,
they-
you should never need
At the
They
top of
hate
the
you.
time
They
is
also
very
8:13.
They will counter sue.
Thank you,
Do
Tom
we have-
Keeper.
Do we have any-
We're having enjoyed the discussion,
just
so
have
we
free
should
flowing.
keep track.
Can I ask
So-
And I'm
some
happy just that I got the
questions?
So, and Val is right, so where are we now? We spoke of, incorporating bike lane.
We've been doing that for quite a bit all day.
Yeah,
I
I know.
summarized the video. I have a video summary of our last feedback session
Okay.
that we
Okay.
can look into in a little bit.
And then,
But I want to do one more thing. I want to plan the next bike lane feedback session, which I think
Okay.
will end up being a walk.
Since we're doing a walk, can I propose that before we do the walk, we do a city bike ride through the district?
I can't ride a bike.
Really?
Really?
Well, it's time to take some classes.
I have
Free.
actually
Like,
I actually
class.
have taken one in the summer. Yeah.
It's,
Oh,
Bike
okay.
New York does a great class.
I know I have an instructor from Bike New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Great.
we're working on
My
that.
6-year-old just learned
I'll
to ride
do my
from
speed
them.
walk.
Yeah.
Listen,
I'll
I'm not
speed
riding
walk
a
with
bike.
We had Fred Baptiste do a ride with us years ago.
Yeah.
He was the chair. I think he left.
Yeah, you can't.
But okay, fine. Since some of us
We'll walk.
can't bike, we'll do a walk.
All right, I'll join you guys soon.
And it'll be good because it's not cold yet, and we
We-
can go
you
to
get
a local
you get a
business
rebel,
afterwards.
get a little moped.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Moped.
Didn't they
Those
cancel?
don't have- they don't have
They
those
canceled
no
the service in the city like last
Yeah,
year.
because somebody
They
I think
canceled
got
it.
killed.
Yeah, the raffle's only in Tesla taxis now. They
Yeah.
they exited scooters in the city.
Yeah.
And, oh, excuse me, I didn't wanna just change the subject, but isn't there some kind of regulation going around about electric bikes, that there's been a lot of accidents with the electric bikes?
Is
Is it the electric
the
bikes or
fires?
the mopeds?
I think it's e-bikes. I think the
Bikes.
batteries are.
The-
Oh, the
yeah, the
batteries can-
Not the
unregulated.
fire, I'm
Oh, not
talking
the
about, accidents and injuries as a result of people and things happening with the e-bikes. Cause they go, I don't know, the speed versus a regular peddler, you know?
I think it
They
depends
they
on the
have usually they should have a governor that cuts it
They
off at
pass it.
19
Yeah.
miles per hour.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, like if you take it to the shop and mod it or do whatever you want, like
Yeah, if you,
And you know
Do
that
something
the
illegal.
cops can't chase them if they
Yeah.
break the law.
don't chase anybody.
No, but they can't, legally they can't.
Really?
Because
Well,
Yeah, they
no,
also
they-
like-
Injuries have
a
happened.
couple of them have died in a chase. and
Right,
they-
Okay,
right,
also
right.
the guys with the bike.
they
Yeah,
got
that's
live.
true.
Oh,
Yeah,
So
he's
now
right.
the guys on the bike have protected the drivers and they can do whatever they
Yeah,
want.
they-
outside
that's
the
right.
accident.
That was on the list too.
yeah. But they have done some police chases,
Alright.
and that's also, it's just
They don't do
dangerous.
police
It's
chases
different than
anymore
in like LA or something where it's wide highways, like a police chase makes sense if someone is.
Also fun to watch.
Right, it's fun to watch, but like in the city, there's we're pedestrians, right?
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
everywhere. So even the cop trying to get the reckless driver is posing a risk to other people. So it's a tough call about what to do. You don't want to just let the criminal get away, but you don't want to kill someone while trying to get.
get more cameras.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, just for a sec.
Speed cameras, that's true.
I'm gonna outline a
But
few.
that's what we talk about regulations,
Mini
license,
EMTs,
you know,
yeah,
because the cops
electromagnetic
don't wanna
pulse,
do
just.
it.
Oh,
You know,
I
it's
thought that they-
everybody that has a pacemaker.
Directed.
That's gonna be a lot of collateral damage right there. All right.
So we're doing a walk.
Yeah, we're doing a walk, but I'm not. Before I get into that, I'm gonna outline a few of the biggest pieces of feedback from the last session in August. Of course, Kingston was a big one. Some people were talking about traffic congestion concerns around 3 to 5 p.m.
I was just saying, Kingston's always a hot mess, especially
Yeah.
now.
I mean, this was online, this session, right?
It was online, yeah, it was
Yeah.
virtual. We had a Zoom meeting.
And it was just you. DOT was not there. There weren't
No,
any
it was just
questions.
me and the locals.
Are they ever gonna come?
Huh?
Is DOT ever gonna like really show up?
Yeah, they are. They can come when we ask.
I mean, we've asked before sometime.
Well, they're responding more now.
Okay, that's
So,
good.
Well, they were here in June, weren't they, no?
yeah, they're here.
Yeah, I missed
They were
that.
here
I
in
missed
June.
that one.
And they presented that.
Yeah, they were here in June. They called. They got some meeting around 2 weeks ago, I think.
Okay.
And they were kind of asking us how much we need them to come, and they were showing some willingness to come through more often.
Yeah, like what happened to the reps? We used to have like our dedicated rep who would attend every meeting.
That's what they had staff. DOT
Oh.
staff has been decimated.
Oh.
Really?
I didn't
So
know.
how, okay, so DOT has been getting in contact with you,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, it's
Is
a
it-
board office, and they'll usually leave me.
Well, do you think that they should be in contact to make it accessible to us all?
I think so, but I'll need to maybe talk to Dante about that because they usually just talk to the district manager and their judgment is what ends up happening. So, and it's usually quicker that way. They could like, hey, say, hey, DOT wants to talk tomorrow or like 3 days from now, and instead of just handling 11 schedules, it's usually just 3, which tends to be a little bit easier, I guess. But yeah, I think communication can be a little deeper, a little more thorough.
Because they used to do that, they used to be accessible to us all.
Yeah,
at one
yeah.
point.
They had like a representative,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
You're asking me or the?
No, it's a statement. That's,
They
they
had
used
like
to
a
do that.
representative that used
Yes.
to come, like, not all the time, but they
Right.
would come
Most
every
of the
couple of every couple of meetings and
Yeah.
stuff.
And we could email
Discuss.
him.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Well, yeah. I'll ask about that and see what we can do. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me go into the feedback we got from the last session. The top one was Kingston.
Just congestion on it in general.
Just how narrow it is, and it was also my main piece of feedback, the fact that leaving folks with a 10-foot travel lane and almost no excess in the parking lanes is not enough. That would lead, people think that would lead to traffic jams and create issues for emergency vehicles. I agree. That was a pretty numerous one. We got that
Existing or what are you looking at?
proposed. Huh?
You looking at your notes?
Yeah, this is a note set that came from the YouTube video. Of course, traffic congestion during school time, so between 7 and 9 and between 3 and 5 was an issue too. People were worrying about that. That's our second most frequent piece. I think there are only a few more commercial deliveries. Another one, so there needs to be availability flows. People want a bit more engagement from DOT and from us to either hear about this stuff so they can learn about it, which I think is useful. Makes sense. Of course, the parking spaces, right? 54 sounds like a lot. You don't want to lose money.
When they do, I always think kind of DOT shoots themselves in the foot when they say a big number, but kind of what Andrew was saying before, they don't say
I did that once.
that out of the scale of how many parking spaces. If it's 55, that sounds like a lot to me.
It does.
But 55 out of
5,000.
yeah, then it's
But you're not taking consideration that people who live in that area that's getting
Mhm.
most of the parking spots removed.
sure, but there's no physical way for everyone in the city to have a parking spot both where they live and where they're going.
If they already have it, you're taking them away. It's
Right, no one likes anything taken away, I get that, and I think their presentation should often be more about the safety benefit of hey, you won't have someone hit on your corner, or you won't be hit because that's where you are the most. But still, I think saying a big number
Can I say
rather than
something?
1% of this corridor.
Also,
Yeah.
I think if they made some accommodations for the people that are losing their parking spaces, look, we have because I work for the city, we have parking spaces just for the municipal people, and it doesn't cost us anything. Show that you live right here, okay, they accommodate you. If we can do something like this, I think it would be a problem with,
Like a
As a
residential parking
yeah.
requirement.
Yeah, I'm in favor of
Yeah,
it.
they exist all over the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
Well,
All
not
over
in
the
the city.
Very rarely
No.
in southeastern Queens.
you understand?
Well,
all over the city.
Everybody,
Oh, different
hey,
But
Where?
Forest Hills
we have
has
to go
one,
to state.
Village has
we have to
one.
No,
state
there's no
residential.
residential. New York
I don't think
City
we
does
have
not
to
have
be
residential.
responsible.
parking.
DC
Other cities do.
DC
New York
has
does.
DC, I love DC.
There's a section of Forest Hills that's a closed, that's private
Closed
street, it's private streets, that's why.
That's why. Oh, and then Riverdale's the same. Okay,
Yeah,
I take it back. New York City does not
New York
do it.
City as a
yeah,
city
they don't do it.
does not, and the city, it's been talked about for 20 years. There's Joanne Simon is an assembly member in downtown Brooklyn that has always been pushing for it. And I remember talking to the old DOT commissioner, Polly Trottenberg, about it. And she was like, the cost of administering a residential parking permit program, like outweighs the money that you would get from it and the headache that you would have of trying to deal with it. Because as soon as, I mean, you're supposed to have a license plate, plenty of people don't have a license plate now, right? So like, you're not gonna have people actually following the rules. And then you need enforcement agents on every corner making sure, wait, do you have a permit to live right here or to park right here? That it's like, it's
It's
just
on
a
your car,
messy.
the permit is on your car.
Right, but then there's fake permits and stuff that it's
But
been
don't you have the,
talked about a lot,
I've
it's just
got-
hard to do.
cause recently
I
I
like the idea,
had
it's hard to do though.
my inspection sticker and it had a QR code on it.
Yeah.
So I would kept saying I'm gonna do it and do it to see exactly where it goes, what the information is or whatever. But
Right.
when I used to work in DC, it was, for me, a headache if I went to work during a certain time. I drove my
Right.
car from Maryland, but the people that lived in the community, if they had the sticker on their car, they were able to park there, and they had, people to come around to check the cars that didn't live there,
Right.
that had meters, like how you know how you get the meters on the block and
Yeah.
stuff? And they, I'm not sure how they did it in DC, but it worked.
It
worked.
works, it's a scale issue. New York City has so many residents and so many people just coming in that don't live in New York City. Like, and think of every New Jersey driver who's gonna say, now you're penalizing me for not living
Oh, yeah.
in New York, but I work in New York, I contribute taxes to you, like.
But
it
you can pay the meter, like
Well-
how there's many places in New York now that you can go and park during a certain time of the day, and I'm a resident of New York City, that I still have to pay the meter, no matter what. Park Slope, they only give you like an hour or something like that when you go over on 7th Avenue, it's like
Yeah.
an hour. All I have is an hour, so I guess the goal is to turn over the spaces, that's what the law
Right.
for ultimate side street parking is, to
Yeah.
turn over the spaces to allow other people to have an opportunity to get the spaces. That's why it was such a nightmare during the pandemic, because we didn't have any enforcement, the cars, they just
Or
parked
just sat there for weeks.
for weeks and weeks and weeks, so I'm a proponent of that.
Yeah.
Yes, it costs, I don't know how much it costs, but this would not guarantee you a spot and stuff, but during a certain time of day, you can make money,
Yeah.
the city, and I don't know what they're doing with the money that they're making now, but it helped to allow people the opportunity to park that
Yeah.
lived in our community.
Yeah, it prioritizes local residents, which
Yeah.
is good.
Talked to Brian Cunningham
Yeah.
and Zalnor Myrie. I let them know, hey, you want that.
So we always get back on those spots though. Those are mostly removed because of daylighting.
Excuse me?
Those are mostly removed because of daylighting and because of that block that they want to remove for
The turning lanes.
the school drop-offs.
Today, in CB9, there are between 9,800 and 11,500 free street curbside parking spaces, depending on how big the cars are that day.
So 55 doesn't sound like a lot.
It's a fraction of a percentage,
But wait,
it
wait.
feels impactful.
On that block and in that area, how many spaces are there? Because I think that's the real, because you're saying in that spot.
They're
where
basically
told-
taking 2 on each corner.
No, so this data is from where, and it's from what blocks? It's
This
that,
is the whole
CB9,
CB.
all of CB9.
All
Mm.
CB.
but this is not the 55 spots.
Yeah.
I'm
Right, no,
talking
the
about, give
55
me
is
the
one
data from the 55 spots.
Yeah,
In that area,
So
how
if-
many spots are there?
I mean, we can, when we do a walk, we can count.
700?
Like-
So they're taking them just from the corners mostly. So, but on a normal street, which is, I don't know, what is it?
But that, on a normal
80
street, that's
80
not
linear
gonna,
feet.
impact the people in this community. In this community, I'm still sticking with data. If there are 2,000 spots and they take away 55, that might not be that bad.
Well, there are 10,000, so.
You know, if they're
That's-
10,
yeah,
but
but
are they
that's-
that's
10,000?
CB9.
He said
Right, yeah.
CB9,
That's
that's
what it sounds
different,
like.
that's different.
Well, I'm
The
just
whole
saying, like,
CB9.
no,
It
there's
sounds like a lot, but when you compare it to how many people actually live in that area,
but like still,
Not that much.
parking spaces, we have one for every 10
I'm talking about this
residents.
right here. How
And
many?
now-
Yeah,
Right.
CB9 has 150,000 people easily.
Yeah.
So-
how many of them have cars?
It
You're talking
It
about
shouldn't be
50,
that many more because then where do
50%?
you put them? In the
I-
private
well,
garage
that's
and
why-
then you complain.
Well, that's why it
And
takes
some people
hours to
have,
find a spot.
I know on my block that people have purchased, parking spaces and, different things like that because they wanna be able to come home at night and get their cars. And
I think
I'm
that's the
fighting, and I'm
intended
fighting
purpose.
for, an opportunity for everyone to be able to use whatever mode of transportation they want to. Because at the end of the day, I don't care, cause I have a garage. So if there's no park, I'm going to put my car in the garage. But I'm thinking about my neighbors in apartment buildings, the people across the street that have like 3 or 4 people in their house, adults that use their car for different types of things. You know, how does the impact of taking away spaces impact their day-to-day commute or their daily lives and different things like that? And I always remember the guy on the TV when they were talking about congestion pricing, how he lives someplace out in Queens and he drives his car to the city. I think he said his commute is like maybe an hour or so, but if he were to take public transportation, it would be 3 hours one way.
And so for him, $50 is a steal.
3 hours one way, 3 hours one way, because the premise of congestion pricing was to encourage people to use public transportation. Was that not it? Because I keep talking about you're supposed to use public transportation. Was that not it?
I think they assumed that would be some part of it. It was to raise money for public transportation.
$15 a day racks up pretty quickly, especially for some things.
But just save 2 hours.
Yeah, but it's not,
Yeah,
but he doesn't have to do that now, you're adding that, you're taxing him now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, my grandparents grew up in the city and they would remember, like, you used to not be able to park your cars on the street overnight. Before alternate side parking was a thing, things changed.
No,
Things
no,
were
no,
simple.
how long
Where
ago
they
was
park
that?
their
When was
cars?
that?
It was in the
1960s.
In the 60s? Oh, okay,
Up
maybe.
until
Like,
1960,
things are
you couldn't park
simple,
overnight.
like, we
Because
have.
when we lived on a
Where
block
did
in
the cars?
64, we was
People
willing
didn't
to
have
use
cars.
the block.
It was different.
So where are we now?
Circular.
Yeah.
I'm letting it flow a little bit, since it's the first one. But yeah, so at this point, we want to like plan a next feedback session. We think it'll be a walk at this point. I think it's a good idea.
Fred is excited.
Bicycle ready. Because she wants to ride the bike.
I'm not, we're gonna walk instead.
As for when I'm thinking, maybe late September before it gets cold. So probably like
I mean,
last.
it gets cold in like mid-October at this point.
But I saw you still ride your bicycle last year in December.
I do, yeah. You get sweaty by the end of it, right?
I mean, I'll ride the.
I ride year round, so.
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
good.
you're right.
Yeah,
check
the
the
meetup during the week.
Check the Jewish calendar though.
Yeah, I mean,
Isn't,
a bunch of
end of
holidays.
end of
is
September,
on that.
we
beginning
should
of
do it
October.
before
has a lot,
October.
too.
So I mean,
October is.
Definitely before.
Rosh
I mean,
Hashanah.
we're talking about all
Because
that
there's a lot of
stuff.
holidays coming up, right?
Yeah,
So
Rosh
Rosh Hashanah and stuff's coming up, right?
Yeah, but we should do it
So-
before
That's first-
before October.
first
So
and
you're
second week of
suggesting a
October.
Jewish holiday because the cars will be there? Is that what you're saying? Everyone would be home?
No,
We
we
want
don't
to
need to
go
do
through all that so that we can
Oh,
actually get.
okay.
Participate.
Yeah, we should do it
If it's
before,
on a holiday.
before the
Okay,
holidays.
gotcha.
Yeah.
But you're thinking a weekend?
No.
A
I mean,
weekend.
we'll see. I'll talk
We
to the
do
board.
like on Saturday mornings, right?
Or Sunday.
Yeah.
How long does the walk take?
Depends on what areas we're gonna cover.
Right.
Yeah, we don't ever cover the whole district, we'll do like a chunk, like maybe just the eastern part, or maybe just the south and the western part. Like, I think we've done different ones to cover different areas, and then we just hit up a local bar.
It'll make sense that we,
And then we just hit up a local
It's supporting local business,
right?
She hit up the bar before the walk.
then we won't be able to observe fully.
I mean, it would make sense for us to walk on the bike lane areas of interest. So perhaps along Kingston.
Yeah.
Perhaps along the
That'd be great.
Wingate area.
Yeah, why don't we do
Not
that?
too many bars in that
That's
area.
kinda fun, and
Maybe
yeah,
a bike
we
lane
go
might
from
help with
here.
that. We'll see.
No, we
No
need
string-
to other
no
transportation
string
to get
has,
there.
Yeah, we'll have to do that across. But yeah,
So-
I don't know a date yet. We're gonna
Right,
talk to the board
right,
office and
right.
see what dates look good across all the meetings and stuff like that.
We could do a doodle to see, like, for the committee members, who
We could.
is, available the most on certain dates.
Yeah, that works.
Majority,
If I could suggest, you can just check with the district office to see. Well, actually, is this off hours you're talking about doing this?
Yes.
Yes, all fine.
Okay, all right. So, all right. I guess it's just a matter of check the holiday calendar and just
Yes.
whatever works.
Before October.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And
Okay.
I don't have the new committee members' email addresses yet, so I can't really
Oh, nice.
send them the doodle to get the date set.
Yeah.
So I'll check with the office first.
I mean, if you guys want to, we can do another one to cover whatever we don't cover this time. We could do another one, after the holidays, I think maybe the end of October, beginning of November. It might be still mild and, rock a jacket.
That's election season though.
Hard to know. I mean, we've had 70 degrees in December too, so it's hard
Yeah.
to know what we're gonna
Yeah,
have.
last December was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay, well, let's not jump too far ahead. Let's just discuss.
Get
what
one
we
out
can
the
do.
way.
Yes.
What are we doing on the walk? Just pointing stuff out?
Well, it's
Yeah.
up to physically be here and see, the parameters and what, we're exactly speaking on, okay? So that's why we need everybody.
take photos,
Yes.
videos, document if we notice anything, any other improvements that are needed.
For example, we're having a lot of discussion of this particular area on Brooklyn Avenue, that, you know, by actually going down there and seeing it, seeing the cars coming through, seeing the people coming through, you may have a snapshot of that particular time for that particular day, unlike when the school is there and it's business during the week, so it
Yeah,
probably
it'll be a
different.
lot quieter because
But
the
then you
weekend.
have to time it to when the worst times are at that area.
Right.
Otherwise-
But that's when most of us are at work.
And see, that's the hard thing about it, because a lot of the times when there's the traffic and the congestion and there's certain things, it's in this finite period of time,
Right.
and we're making decisions for the whole area, and it only impacts it like maybe 3 hours out of the whole day.
That's why I think we shouldn't assume that it's just up to us to see and decide how congested a street is,
Correct.
and decide what
DOT.
which deserves what, because, you know, are we all willing to sacrifice whatever we have to be able to go there at, you know, maybe 3 p.m. or at 8:30 in the morning to see, you know, the true congestion of that street when it matters the most? Probably not.
And so, are we having DOT to come out to actually visit, take photographs? Because from back in the day, one of my part-time jobs from school, during the summer, was to do a survey. And I can't remember exactly what I was supposed to be counting at the time, but it had to do with the number of people and the number of trucks, I think, that came through this particular intersection at this particular time. And it was just back in the day where you tick, 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 tick.
Yeah,
And you had to count.
There's a little app for that.
Right, but we didn't have an app back then. He had the pencil and the piece of paper,
Yeah.
and so that they could see. And this project was like for so many days, and they had different groups for different times to be able to determine what was going on at that particular traffic corner, because they too were having
That's a great idea.
accidents and
DOT
different things
has
like
stuff that
That is
does that. Don't
DOT's
they?
job.
Right, DOT has, they have methods of doing, I think they put the cord across the street or something like that, and they
Yeah.
count how many axles go over or something like that at the time. So, I mean, just along those lines, that might be an ask, you know, if you want them to do a study in terms of what are the worst corridors or in what times these things are happening, that might be an ask you can make in terms of, you can ask them to do that, do a study. I don't know how long they run these things for, you know, or if you just want it for the season or something like that, and they might be able to get back to you. At least it's a question we can ask in terms of, can they do studies, or you might wanna just narrow down what streets do you wanna look at. Because I'm sure it's not for the entire district, but if there's certain corridors you're looking at.
Right, so what I think would be the best use of time is to, if we're gonna do a walk, go out there with the plan in hand, and then take a look at how things will look like if implemented. And we can probably, I mean, a lot of us already easily know what wouldn't work and what probably would. Like, the Kingston section is not gonna work for people in the area, because it just doesn't even make mathematical sense, you know? There are other areas that will and won't work, and I mean, it'll end up being a good exercise, I think. And we can have another session maybe in October, it probably isn't a walk, but we can have, you know, more locals come in and give opinions and stuff like that. But I think as long as we're not too hung up on the fact that, or the idea that we need to judge what is needed, you know, I think it can go well.
And then just being
Just
there
observations.
and experiencing and seeing it with our own eyes, that will give us a better understanding of the exactly implementation of what's going on, what the ask is, what the resolution is, and what are the options that best fit based on what we're looking for. At the end of the day, it's safety. Safety for the driver, safety for the pedestrian, safety for whomever's in another type of vehicle that's coming through.
So we're gonna set dates later. We'll find a date that works for the majority of people. And yeah, we'll decide where exactly we're gonna go and see at that time. But
Would anybody be open to at least proposing one weekday date as an option? Just so like after work, just to vote on, to see if, you know, if a bunch of us are available that day too. So like we can have some weekend day suggestions and weekday suggestions too. It'll definitely be different on a weekday,
yeah,
just throwing it out there.
I mean, I think we should check with the road office first before we try something. We don't even have the holiday calendar up right now to look.
Okay, yeah, it works.
Even if I could, I don't know, because I can't stand, I'm gonna just have a quick second.
Good, Phyllis, you continue.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we can end this meeting right now.
Yeah, that's, I was gonna say, we can't say
So then, in summation, no, no, I apologize, and I just wanted to stop by and see you and just say thank you, first of all. I see a lot of familiar faces, I see a lot of energy and talent and expertise, and people committed to the struggle. So I just want to thank you in advance for everything you've done. Thank you for all the work I know you're gonna be doing. And, listen, you have, leadership here, you have support here, you have the district office team, so whatever support we can provide as well, just please let us know. Listen, there's no strangers at the table, so I think that's a great thing. Just looking forward to working with you, and anything I can do to support, let me know.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Fred.
Appreciate you all.
Thanks, Fred.
Have a great
See you
day.
later.
Thanks,
Good
Fred.
luck.
Yes.
Tommy?
Well, new business, anything?
Oh, right, any new business, right.
I got new, yeah.
Tell us.
I got new business that's old business. We
What's
had
that?
two things that didn't pass last year,
What's that?
What's that?
right?
No, what did that
Two things that didn't make it to committee, or didn't make it to full board.
Didn't make it if I'm wrong?
Ocean and Lincoln.
What about Ocean?
They didn't come up for vote.
Yeah, well, Lincoln's not even really flushed out yet.
So do you
Lincoln,
wanna-
I think I think Lincoln is the stage where we actually do need a walk.
See, we need
Because-
Brenda here, because Brenda's business is on Lincoln.
Right. I think Lincoln deserves a real walk because but the bike
I said
lane,
walk.
the bike lane plans for Kingston is already made. We can at this point. What I'm hoping we can do is just like
Maybe Lincoln
cross
might be
out
the
things
first
and tell DOT here if these don't work, build the rest of it. I think that could probably work out. Lincoln is not a project yet. And this is a case where we'd be coming up with one. Like we already did with the Kingston stuff, but DOT had one too, so now we're editing theirs. But I think Lincoln, we could come up with something, huh? And do a vote to see what might be
Do you
possible.
want, then we can go to the restaurant.
But Lincoln's a really weird place. I think we need to measure that street if we can, because it's weird because it's supposed it's listed at above 80 feet in the zoning directory.
That's not accurate.
It looks like it's at most 70.
It's 77, but the way that the city code works, you round up,
Oh.
because it is a regular street.
And it's 77 including sidewalks, right?
Yes, from lot line to lot line.
Do you know how wide the road bed is?
I had probably like 40.
40.
No.
So if you go on Zola, you can see exactly how wide
I think
the.
the Zola numbers were wrong.
I think they're wrong too.
Yeah, that's where you and I were having this
Really?
conversation.
Yeah, they were. Because I
Maybe
mean,
my data's off.
the calculations that I've been using, if the street's actually 80, it could pretty much hold like, you can add a bus lane in there and a bike lane and it'll be fine.
Okay, so we're gonna do a walkthrough.
I think
It
we
should
should.
say
Okay,
irregular,
so,
It's saying-
alright, so
but it
now,
doesn't give you the street bed.
No.
Please, you gotta head out.
So I have the city.
Alright,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure we did
City
something productive
map.
today. We did the street code aiming.
yes.
The only things left on the list are really the bike
Where
lane
the sidewalk
situation, which we're
numbers.
trying to have some feedback sessions for to get people's thoughts.
Right, and we're going to Kingston.
Yeah, we're gonna do Kingston.
Okay,
And then apart from that, we have a walk setting the next session. And maybe just incorporating the feedback so we can kind of make adjustments to what DOT is trying to give us. Which we already kind of already have. And then the next thing is maybe the Lincoln walk that we should probably put into
Yeah.
business for next time.
And that can be much shorter.
So yeah, it's basically a block.
One block.
It's not even a block, it's like one segment, it's a segment of a street.
An update from
Look
that
at this
standpoint.
one.
No, yeah. I think,
It's been a while now.
I
That
was
was like
assuming-
March or April that we met with them.
yeah, wasn't it like June?
No.
Who, DOT?
No,
No,
fire
fire
department.
department.
Oh,
Fire
fire.
department.
Oh, right, oh,
Yes,
so did
we
they,
have old
We were
business.
talking about it,
So they
maybe,
finished
let's not, it was June.
No,
what did they say when you met with them? Cause y'all was supposed to meet with them, right?
Yeah, we did it very,
Like, go sit down.
huh? No, so we agreed on a few things.
Okay,
We're gonna order the cars differently so that the long pickups and those longer vehicles park in the middle of the block
okay.
instead of the ends, so that they have a lower effect on lines of sight when making turns. So they're gonna like start designating certain spots for certain vehicle lengths. Obviously, moving those to the other side to actual on-street parking is a non-starter, because it used to be a thing in the past and it was nixed, so it doesn't make sense going back to that. So basically, the plan B that we got with them was we're trying to make the existing parking situation less of a hazard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more thing?
Mhm.
So we've been doing a lot of like spot by spot by spot stuff.
Yeah.
I think the rabbi brought it up, Val brought it up, that their DOT has these competing mandates. They have to daylight 1,000 intersections. They have to provide 500 loading spaces. I think it would really be smart for us to think about where these things would best likely fit. Like, hey, we want to combine daylighting with school safety and park access instead of just.
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah, but putting that down in text and saying yes, you're approved.
Well, that was my like longer term plan for whenever we get a delaying resolution made. We can like do that district wide and have like some guidelines where those go.
Yeah, because there's a little back on Lincoln. Confused me.
Oh, the residential one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes some sense.
I don't know why it was put in there. At 50 Lincoln Road.
Of that city quota, do we know how many we have to deal with?
We personally,
You and I.
well, it depends basically how much the community board and the electeds ask from it. Basically, how much
The
your
mandate's
council
just
member wants
citywide.
it. So like Manhattan could get 999, and we can get one, and the city would fulfill their mandate. So maybe that strategically, we would also say, we don't think this is appropriate for us. We see another district.
Right. So yeah, that's also like a later plan, maybe like October, November.
But I think
Along those lines, I was curious, I was looking up some of the crash data for CV9, and like, I wonder if we could pinpoint like the most dangerous areas
Right,
for
that sounds good.
pedestrians. So I just looked from so that we met last September, right, like just a year ago, there were 180 injuries in CV9.
And hit and runs, remember? It's like several hit and runs.
180 injuries, 173 of that 180 were pedestrians and cyclists. So like,
Bicyclists?
Why are you surprised? We have like 3 bike lanes in the district. Why are you surprised?
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly
I'm
why we
saying-
need more bike lanes.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Did I hear correct? You said pedestrians and bicycles.
Right.
One
More
of
than
those were
majority.
hit by a car.
See, I
Or
didn't
were
say
injured in a crash with a car.
Injured in a crash, right,
So,
okay.
so of
there were
180,
thousands and thousands of crashes, but out of 180.
there were 180 injuries within the last year, and 97% of those injured were either a pedestrian or a cyclist.
So they were in a car.
Right, or the,
Yeah.
right, the
You
car
can't be a
protects
pedestrian
you.
if you're in the car.
Right,
But basically,
right.
the people in the car cause undue harm to every other road user.
Well,
when
well,
there's
they
a
all,
crash.
the people in the
What
car
was the
have
condition?
safety.
Was it raining, snow,
you can find
ice,
that-
You can
sleet?
find
all of it.
all that
It's
out
all
on
of it.
Crash
Oh, she's going.
And then like,
It's fine.
Because I noticed that they say that when the sun goes down a little bit,
yeah.
that the
But
injuries
this
kind
is
of go up.
this is the ag
Car
car.
curfews.
And then I look back as far as I can find, 2011 was as far back as I can find, so that's, well, more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
There were 3,003 injuries within CV9,
Okay.
800,
Opposed to,
say again?
opposed to,
What do you
But
mean?
there's no
And this
comparison.
year we only have 180.
There's no comparison.
180,
It's
right?
not in 1 year, I'm saying in 12 years, 13 years now.
Wait,
That's a good increase, well,
Yes.
decrease.
wait.
Oh,
Because it was
yeah.
you said 3,000.
Increase.
Decrease.
I don't know, that's
Decrease.
We're gonna write this
Trying to
down.
get
In
to.
10 years.
In
there were
over
three-
10 years, 3,003 injuries happened to fellow residents or people
Oh,
you
I
know.
thought you said in 2011.
No, it's across all the years.
Oh, okay,
They
sorry.
understand.
allow me,
X that.
I hear you, but allow me to interject. The reason why Fred put in 7 to 8:30, because he really wants us to respect that time. He really wants us to respect it. That's why I said, let's get to what we need to do.
Okay, well, I mean, that would be easy. I mean, this has been a pretty relaxed meeting. We
It has.
didn't enforce any 2-minute speaking limits. So if everyone can stick to those, then we'll have a very good argument for 8:30
I'm
ending.
just saying.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
just saying.
To finish what the point though, 3,003 injuries to our fellow residents in CV9
In 10 years, you said.
in over 10 years, 12 years.
12 years.
Since 2011, that's as far as I can find back. 875 of those injuries were people on bike. 1,977, nearly 2,000 injuries were to pedestrians, and 151 were to drivers. So, again, it's a similar statistic that 95% of the time,
Uh-huh.
the person injured in these crashes are either pedestrians or cyclists. That I don't want, I mean, I drive too, I don't want to be in a crash, I've been in crashes, they're terrible. But those people, the car protects you if you're going slow enough, that it's not a high-speed impact, like the car itself protects you, there's airbags. I really want us to look out for pedestrians especially, and I'm
Correct,
always gonna
correct,
focus on my
correct,
kids, cause they're
correct.
so little, they're easy to not see, that it's like, I'm curious if we can look at, like you were saying, of the DOT mandates. I'm like, why don't we look at the 100 or 10 worst pedestrian intersections in CB9 and just put all of our focus on that? That could be our year project or something.
That would be great.
One challenge to that, those statistics is that, first of all, the drivers, how many of those accidents or injuries, how many times were the driver doing something illegal? Number two, how many times were the bicycles doing something illegal? Because it's not fair to punish all drivers because some drivers are driving recklessly and cause most of the accidents.
So I agree,
That's
but I guess I
Hey,
disagree
Judge.
with the premise. I don't care who's at fault. I don't want people injured.
Judge the outcome,
Well,
not the
But you
reason.
can't,
One
Like,
second,
well,
you're
okay, so
penalizing everybody.
one second,
but maybe we just disagree on the approach there. I don't want myself, my family, or my neighbors injured. I don't care who's at fault,
Okay.
right? The ambulance comes no matter who's at fault, and just whoever's hurt worse. That's why, like, if you can have all the cars you want, if they're going slowly, it's not gonna be a problem.
So Paco,
You know?
it's a great idea when you said, let's look at the areas in which people are affected the most. Because then we can see how we can improve those areas.
Yeah,
That's it.
that was.
Okay.
And my last comment is, I noticed that, this is the last thing I wanna say, and I don't know if we can change this, but when I'm sitting on the corners, I'm very observant, I'm hyper vigilant, and I noticed that people lead out with their kids in the baby carriage, and I was like, what kind of apparatus can we have, because the kid is going out first in the traffic.
Have a flag. in
You
front
know,
of the car.
because I'm like, wow, the kid is going out there in the curb and they just about to get hit and the parents looking at me.
Where do you
All right, one
suggest
second, folks.
pushing
Let
the
me just-
carriage forward?
Big pole?
I don't know, but
Hold
why
on,
don't
steals the
you,
kid.
you know,
Val,
and
one
then
second.
they walk with the kid to the corner instead of walking to the kid
You
on
know
the
Hold on a
right
second,
side.
You know what I've told my
Now,
kids?
Paco, hold on a second.
We're
We're almost done with the meeting. One sec.
Yeah, we are done.
Go ahead.
The lesson I taught my kids is you stop at the building line.
Okay,
That's about 10, 15 feet back from the corner.
okay.
But no matter what you teach a kid, they're kids, right? So like, or some people are just not gonna pay attention to the rules, whatever, however many regulations we make. So I wanna focus on just how do we reduce the
Save
injuries?
lives,
I don't care who's
save
at fault. Let the insurance, figure that out, whatever it is. I'd rather that no one is injured. That's my goal.
Well
Okay.
said.
Now,
Yes.
just to clarify some of those last points, because we can argue all day long about what should be done about accidents. I mean, DOT, of course, when they're building things, they're gonna
That's the
try.
timer.
They're
They're
gonna try. They're gonna try to build things to prevent accidents, not just in hopes that someone behaves well. So it's kind of like putting a lock on your front door. It wouldn't make sense if someone breaks into a house that was unlocked and you say it doesn't matter because it just, it was illegal, right? It's illegal to drive recklessly and maybe hit someone, but DOT is gonna have interest in designing streets that forces people to drive in accordance with the law. If they're gonna narrow a street and punish all drivers so that they have to drive at 25 and not have the option of going 40, they'll do it, right? And I mean, I can understand why, because to an extent, if you don't, you're kind of just hoping that people behave nice and drive well.
Everybody, not just the drivers, the people that are walking
Well,
in the street.
regardless, hope is not a strategy.
Put speed bumps everywhere.
You can't just sit back, and DOT surely wouldn't sit back and just decide, let's just hope for the best. Felice, yeah, we can have a vote
We
for
have to
adjournment.
get out
He's ready to go.
Who's
second? He's ready to go.
Second.
Who's second?
Second.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Let's work on this going forward. I
Huh?
appreciate your coming out. It was a nice, healthy conversation.
Definitely.
Like the last time we were here.
Oh, Colin,
This is perfect.
have a great time.
You're welcome home. Let's turn off the video.
Thanks
This is just like
again.
the gun show, the token prayer.